Welcome, builders of the internet. My name is Jessa and I work in construction, and today is your lucky day.
Latest updates in construction, mental health and more stuff with building on my mind.
This is one of my latest updates in the construction industry videos, where I talk about news that interests me to do with mental health and/or the construction industry to help keep me up to date with what's going on. As always, you can find sources and timestamps in the description. This first article I want to talk about today is really exciting because it pretty much sums up what I'm trying to work towards with this channel. And PPC Today is saying that psychotherapists in residence should inform urban design decisions. Figures from the United Nations show that around 55% of people are living in urban environments at the moment, and this figure is expected to go up to nearly 70% by 2050. Urban areas or cities are more related to higher mental health issues compared to rural areas, with around 40% of people having a higher risk of depression and 20% having higher risk of anxiety. As a result, having psychotherapists involved in the planning process is really great because they tend to have a better understanding of human behaviour and so can facilitate environments being more creative and more innovative and better for mental well-being. The main news I want to talk about today is about Trump's recent order that all federal public buildings need to be beautiful. So what exactly does this mean? Federal public buildings are defined as federal courthouses and agency headquarters, including those in the National Capital Region, and all other federal public buildings expected to cost over $50 million as of 2020. On the 21st of December 2020, Trump signed an executive order promoting beautiful architecture, which basically means classical architecture, such as those with influence from Greece and Rome, so those pillars that you see on the White House. It's not just limited to these two styles though. There are other traditional architectures deemed acceptable in the executive order, namely some Renaissance styles similar to that by Michelangelo and Alberti, and then Enlightenment styles such as Sir Christopher Wren's designs, as well as lists of architects in the 19th and 20th centuries whose designs are also considered beautiful. According to the White House government website, these types of architectures are stated to have proven their ability to meet design criteria and sustainability, functionality, and technology goals that meet the needs of today's world. This executive order also means actively discouraging brutalist and deconstructivist styles, which emerged in the 20th century. Brutalist buildings tend to have a block-like appearance and use a lot of exposed poured concrete, and deconstructivist buildings allegedly undermine traditional architecture by incorporating fragmentation, disorder, continuity, distortion, instability, and skewed geometry. Why did Trump issue this order? In the 1950s, the federal government largely replaced traditional designs in favour of more modernist ones. This became official policy, and contemporary designs were encouraged instead of more traditional styles that were known for their beauty. This move was widely unpopular, with the outcome being that the general public found these new buildings to be quite unappealing, especially with the huge inconsistency between the existing classical architecture. Here are some pictures of buildings that came as a result of this 1950s order, and make of them what you will. Because of all this backlash, it was considered time to address these issues to ensure that American people were satisfied with their public buildings, and that new constructions could be identifiable as federal buildings. The Section 2 policy states that federal buildings should uplift and beautify public spaces, inspire the human spirit, ennoble the United States, and command respect from the general public. How have people responded to it? There are many articles that are kind of neutral on whether this is a good move or not, but the National Civic Art Society, who has dedicated themselves to advancing classical traditions in architecture, appear to be in full support, as well as some people on Twitter showing their support because they find modern architecture to be ugly. As is kind of expected from Twitter, this order received a lot of backlash, with various people saying how Trump isn't qualified for determining beautiful buildings, and then giving various pictures of his own buildings as examples, and I have to admit some of them do look a bit questionable. There was also criticism over how this executive order was passed amidst a pandemic, when there are many other more important matters going on, but I don't fully understand how governments work in order to give comment as to whether this criticism is justified or not. Another criticism is that this order doesn't have sustainability as one of the more predominant goals of the order, which is what people feel should be more focused on instead. The American Institute of Architects has directly spoken against this order, with letters being written directly to the White House. This is because they believe that architecture should be designed for the specific communities that it serves, reflecting the rich nation's diverse places, thought, culture, and climates. Essentially, they want to protect freedom of thought and expression, which is seen as critical for democracy. But what do you think? It'd be really interesting to hear other people's thoughts, so feel free to leave a comment. The last thing I want to talk about today is taking care of your mental well-being. I live in England, which has recently introduced Tier 4 restrictions, which essentially is another word for lockdown. And an article came out quite recently talking about the effects of lockdown on mental health. I know that most, if not everybody, has experienced changes to their lives due to this pandemic, but with the constant changes of restrictions and the uncertainty that's happening, it's said to have associated with higher levels of anxiety and depression, which are both responses to stress. With England having repeated lockdowns as well, this is said to have an exaggerated emotional and psychological response. Even if every time that we have lockdown you may feel it a little bit less than last time, it doesn't undermine the fact that it's changing a lot of what's happening to our lives and having an effect on people. Of course, there are going to be some people that come out of the restrictions thriving, but there are also going to be many people who develop unhealthy coping mechanisms, such as substance misuse, alcohol abuse, eating disorders, etc. And one of the really important things I think to take away from this article is it's telling us to normalise our feelings. Just because you have different responses towards other people towards these situations doesn't mean that there's something wrong with you, and it's so important to take care of yourself. I wholeheartedly agree with this sentiment and would just like to encourage people to reach out to your friends, reach out to your family, or anybody that you feel like you can talk to about your issues. If you don't feel like you have anybody, there are anonymous helplines such as the Samaritans, to which I'll put information in the description. That's all I have to say about mental health and construction for now. I hope it helped build on your mind.
Thanks for watching this channel, it's building on my mind. Check out my other videos, but first hit the bell and comment, like, subscribe. Please, it really helps with the algorithm.